The 2023-2024 NHL season is underway. We've kicked off hockey in the Garden State, and things have started. We'll leave it at that for now. The Devil season is 3 games in. They've had a 3-game homestand to open up the year, and they've got one win, one loss, and one loss in the shootout, 1-1-1 to open things up. Uh, it's Puck on the Parkway. We're back, and this is the first time we've ever had actual NHL games to discuss, to dissect, to analyze, and for that, we're very excited. I'm James Burley, and I'm joined, as always, Daniel Rebane. How's it going, brother?
Hey man, I've been okay. I went to the game last night. Obviously, that was our first loss in regulation of the year, and we'll get to the game in depth. But it was my birthday, so went there with one of my friends. Just had a fun time for the last period, the third period. The first two periods sucked, but yeah, overall, I've been good.
Yeah, well, happy birthday, belated, first of
Thank
all.
you.
And to talk about the Devils, you alluded to that third period being good and the first and second, not so much. That's kind of been a pattern through the first 3 games so far. They haven't really gotten their legs under them at all, I would say. Not a complete 60-minute performance yet, not a complete 40-minute performance, I would even say. They haven't looked good over a stretch of 2 periods for a single moment this season. They've played 9 periods and I think have been the better team in 3 or maybe 4 of them. So that's something that they're going to need to address going forward. And they opened up the year Thursday, October the 12th against the Detroit Red Wings. That's pretty friendly as terms of opponents go for your opener. And they dug themselves a hole, but dug themselves out of it down 2-1. Couple of goals. Dougie Hamilton makes it 3-2. And you think that's going to be the winner, but eventually Eric Haula's fourth goal, the empty netter, is the winner because Robbie Fabry comes back and scores one late. And I think everybody kind of got the sense, okay, we didn't get going in game 1. We still got the win. Game 2 tomorrow night when we play the Coyotes, it's an even weaker opponent. Things are going to get riled up. We're going to turn up the heat. And that didn't quite happen. They went down in the first period again, giving up I think they went down 2-0 at one point in the Coyotes game. And it was a couple defensemen to score, Matt Dumba and Sean Dursey, who are
Yep, 2-0.
not high scoring defensemen by any stretches either for those guys, but it was an absolute great clapper, by the way, by Dursey on the power play for the Yotes. And the Devils came alive in the second. And that's what everybody was expecting. Who said, okay, once the Devils come alive, it's going to happen. Things are going to turn around. And they scored 3 goals in the second period, all of which were either at 4-on-4, 5-on-4, or 5-on-3. So I think that's something we got to talk about a bit too. And then in the third period, they foot off the gas. Nick Schmaltz scores a great goal to tie things up. The Coyotes go ahead and take it in the shootout. And then the third game against the reigning Eastern Conference champion Florida Panthers, it was the same sort of thing that we saw against the Coyotes, but instead of the second period, it was the third period. And instead of being down 2-0, they let another 20 minutes get away from them. They were down 4-0. So the pattern is mathematically lining up as well. But the Devils scored 3 goals late in the third. They were dominating that third period. And if not for that stupid penalty at the beginning, I will say Nico going after Matt Tkachuk, that's fine. If you're fed up with that guy and you want to get your guys going down 3-0 in the third, but Andre Palat taking the cross check and what ends up being the game winner for Florida is that Sam Reinhart deflection goal in the third period. His second of the game. He had a great game, by the way. I thought that entire line for Florida was
They were
excellent.
buzzing. They were buzzing.
They skated so well. I thought the Coyotes outskated the Devils really too. That's the one thing the Devils had against the Red Wings is that the neutral zone wasn't wide open. Against the Coyotes and Panthers, teams were flying through them, and that's not something we saw the Devils let happen to themselves a lot last year. And it's been a theme now for the first 3. They've started slow. They haven't gotten their legs under them. They haven't skated like they have. And yeah, a couple of losses back to back before they head out to New York on Friday where they're facing the Islanders. But overall, it's been underwhelming. 3 games in, you don't have to slam on the panic button, but there's been trends that everyone's pointed out that no one's happy with.
Yeah, these first 3 games. Obviously, we'll start with the first one. The first one against the Red Wings. You come out slow. Thank God Jack Hughes woke the team up through the first three
Two,
games.
two great goals.
It's
Two
just
great
it's
goals.
literally just been him and Jesper Bratt. Personally, with my eyes, that's who I've seen. Those are the only 2 players actually playing for this team right now. And they're the ones getting the team on the board right now. First game, you have Jack Hughes back-to-back goals, got to 2-1. Then we eventually in the third kind of get it under wraps, pull away late. But then yeah, we talk about the Coyotes game. We're thinking, oh yeah, obviously the Coyotes are a bit better this year, but they're
They're
nowhere near our
they're
level.
the Coyotes.
Yeah, they're still the Coyotes, and we just couldn't get our feet under us for whatever reason. This whole season so far, they look slow, they look stagnant. I'm at the game yesterday, and I just see players just standing still, not reacting well enough, and then you just see other teams just skating around us. You didn't see this last year, but that's a little worrying. Obviously, only 3 games in, so you're gonna hope that we kind of get that under wraps. Obviously, today we saw in practice they're skating, they're doing gassers. So hopefully that kind of wakes them up. Obviously, post game yesterday, Nico Heischer's like, yeah, we can see what we are at our full potential, but we haven't seen them at their full potential at all this year.
Yeah, and I really do want to harp on the fact that it is still early, 3 games in, but this frustration comes from a place of expectation, right?
Yep.
Last year, a lot of teams went into the Devils building not expecting much, and even at the beginning of last year when it was the Flyers and Red Wings, by the way, back to back, same opponent, home opener, strange. Um, Everybody remembers what happened. Those 2 games did not go well at all. They actually played well against the Red Wings, but lost, played terribly against the Flyers. And that's the fire Lindy, fire Lindy. Everything turned around. Now, everybody knows what the Devils are. Everybody saw what the Devils did last year, 52 wins, franchise record, uh, points franchise record, Jack Hughes franchise record season, single season in points. And they're only getting better. They're only coming out of the youth and into their primes. So a lot of teams are going to the Prudential Center now with a lot more to expect of themselves. And I think you saw the way Florida played, you saw the way Arizona played. Every inch of the ice they tried to cover, they were better on battles, better in the corners, and better in the neutral zone, which is something that the Devils really can't afford to let happen to them with how much they want to play on the break, how much they want to play in transition, and how fast they want to play. Because if they can't set up the puck in the neutral zone and can't get going, they're not going to be able to get in the offensive zone at all. And I think for big parts of the first and second period against Florida, even though the shots, just because that game is the most fresh in my memory, the shots were pretty even through the first and second periods, maybe 2 or 3 the other way, but the shots were not of good quality. They made Sergei Bobrovsky, who had a strong game, can't take anything away from him, very strong for the first 2 periods, but they didn't really test him all that much, with the exception of
Mhm.
one point blank save on Bratt on the power play, that really nice glove save from Bob. I didn't think he had to deal with all that much other than just shots getting thrown at him that he could push aside, a few bodies thrown in front of the net, but no really clear cut shots on goal. For me, that was the most disappointing thing because we know that things are going to click. Eventually, they're going to start skating well. Eventually, some shots are going to turn into goals. But if they're not getting good opportunities at all, that to me is that could be a bad habit that they set up further down the line. Is that something you picked up on as well?
Yeah, I picked up a couple of things last night, actually being in the arena. For the first 2 periods, we had no ozone possession at all. Like we could not stay in the ozone at all. We'd always dump it in. We're a big dumping team this year so far, and that seems a bit odd to me that we're not trying to carry the puck in at all. I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
I it's not that I agree that it's important to have pointed that out. I don't hate that idea, right? Especially when you're trying to establish like offensive zone ice time and you're trying to get uh territorial advantage in the game. When things aren't working, I like the idea. Dump the puck, chase it. I like guys like McLeod and guys like even Dawson Mercer is such a good forechecker that I think you have to utilize, especially because Mercer's playing big top 6 minutes this year. I know we're going to talk about the lines and the way they changed, but he just jumped from Heischer's line to Hughes's line. So there's going to be a lot of times where he's going to be chasing the puck deep into the zone. And to have a good forechecker on guys that can hold the puck in and then score, I like the idea of maybe mixing it up and dumping the puck a bit more. But if we're over reliant on it and we're not skating through the neutral zone with the puck and not headmanning it and carrying it into the zone at 5-on-5, then that's something that the Devils really have to go back to the drawing board on. I like it as a temporary solution, but it didn't work against Florida. The
Mm-mm.
I mean, they have better guys at that type of game. That's more of the Florida's game, really. That's the gritty type of hockey that got them through the gauntlet of the playoffs. Guys like Ryan Lomberg really fit that bill, and even some of their scorers like Nick Cousins, I think, really do that job really well too. So I think it was a bad moment to do it against Florida. I would have liked to have seen more dump and chase against the Coyotes because we got really outworked in the neutral zone there.
Yeah, and to point out that it didn't work, Florida is missing Ekblad and they're missing Montour. So if you couldn't dump it in against Florida, I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
that didn't seem like the best plan to go through there. But also another something I pointed out was how you were talking about Bob had like easy saves through the first two
Mhm.
periods. Obviously, you very noticeably saw that he'd make one save, danger over. Third period around, much more bodies crashing the net. You saw a bunch of crease battles, like close chances, pucks squeaking out. And if we had some better time moments finishing, we could have easily tied that game. I kind of remember that Holtz chance where it kind of popped out to him. He had the whole right side of the net open. He skied it. But that's what we need to do. If just keep firing pucks to the net, just get the puck on net, get some bodies in there, just crash the net, make the goalie's life, hard. Just for Bob, like, yeah, he's like a good goalie, but like they were making it way too easy for him.
Yeah, and part of that is just not getting into the ozone in areas that you want to. But when we look at the power play, when it becomes easier to skate through the space in the offensive zone and set up shop, I thought also, by the way, really good on faceoffs in the offensive zone, doing a really good job of when we have power plays, keeping the puck in the offensive zone, not chasing. I think Jack Hughes has really improved in that area specifically. But the power play has looked so lethal in ways that it hasn't in the past. Um, and that's a good thing, right? I don't want to be here and saying we shouldn't have good special teams, but there's a reason why us being so good at even strength and the Rangers having incredible special teams, why the Devils ended up going through in that series. You have to be able to play your game at 5-on-5. If you don't have your A game, you have to have a better B game. And we learned last year against the Hurricanes, the Devils just don't have a B game. They're very, very get it and go type of team. They want to play a certain way. And if they don't, they really struggle because they haven't gotten that way of playing back on their stick again. I can't see the Devils just turning this around like that. However, it's going to take some moments, right? You think that a big three-goal second period against the Coyotes could change it, but then you look back, all those goals are on the power play or at 4-on-4. Even in the third period against Florida, those goals were either with a delayed penalty or on the power play. So you have to really take these things into account and say, well, what's working and what isn't working for the Devils? Power play is great. Penalty kill could use some work, but at 5-on-5, they just haven't had their identity yet. And I think that is part of what makes goalies' lives easier. When you're not facing the team that you expect to be facing, you're going to be just that much sharper than them. And look, I'm not going to take anything away from Sergei Bobrovsky, but the Panthers were 0-2 going into Monday night, and his save record in the first two games, not great. So for him to have turned it around, good for him. He's one of the greatest goalies of our generation, easily, as a hockey fan. So I have much respect for him. But I was looking forward to the Devils having a tired goalie who hasn't had a great performance yet under his belt and really try to take it to him. And then he shut the door for 40 minutes.
Yeah, obviously you brought up the power play. Obviously, through the first three games, we're top five on the power play at 31.3%. So that
It's a
that
good
that's a
number.
that's a positive. I said if we wanted to take that next step, our power play had to be at minimum top 10, and if we wanted to take a really good step, top five. So I've liked the power play so far. Sometimes they overpass, but you know what? With the playmakers they have on there, I'm okay with it.
Absolutely. I've seen that complaint that they pass the puck too much, they don't shoot enough. I thought Luke Hughes specifically was getting some criticism for that on the couple of power plays because he's quarterback in the power plays. He's gonna have to get used to not having as much space as he does at the college level. I'm sure he's already gotten used to that by now, playing in I believe what is already his eighth or ninth professional hockey game.
Yep.
I might be wrong on the number there. Could be seven, could be 10, not sure. But the point is, with the Devils' makeup of their team, they're a pass first team in the offensive zone. Jack Hughes is a playmaker. Jesper Bratt's a playmaker. Nico Hischier is a playmaker. And guys like Hughes and Hamilton at the top of the zone during power plays, those guys are playmakers too. They have wicked shots, especially Hamilton. But because they see all the ice in front of them, you want those guys shuffling it off to the half walls, behind the net, in front of the net. I'm okay with the overpassing, especially because when they have gotten looks, they've gotten point blank great looks, such as Bratt, the second, or I believe the third goal against the Panthers, that was on the power play, and he found so much space, but took so much patience in order to get there. And I'm okay with that. Sometimes when you're down 4-1, 4-2 in the third period, and the guy who's quarterback in the power play isn't shooting the puck, it can be really easy to just be in the stands and yell, shoot the puck, shoot the puck. But you have to understand the context of that power play and who the players are on the wings. Things are going to get moved around, and you have to shuffle the defense around. And you got to give the Panthers credit. Their special teams are among the best defensively in the league. They're that gritty team. You don't want to go up against their penalty kill that much if you can face other teams. But guys like I mentioned Ryan Lomberg before. I mean, the guy's a pest. You don't just get a lot of time on top of the zone when you're playing a team like Florida, even on the power play. So I think that's positives to take away on special teams, but it's very few positives really because, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, the Devils have had what, 3 good periods out of 9 so far this year. I and that's a cause for concern. I don't think that there's anything to be overtly positive about from any of the 3 games other than you got the win in the game 1 against Detroit.
Yeah, the only criticism I'd say for the power play before we can move on power play 2, when Heischer's the Heischer one, I just give me swap Meyer and Holtz on either half wall. I need them on their off wings for the one timers. I don't know why they have Meyer on his right on the left wing and Holtz on the right. Both of them are known for their shot, so just that's the only switch I would make for that.
Yeah, and that's a good segue because what's next on the docket for us is, well, who's playing with who and where and why, because the lines have been changing, and that's something that you do in hockeyism coach. Lindy Ruff said he was asked, are you considering changing the lines? Like right after the Florida game, he was asked that, and his thought was, well, I'm always considering things. You always have to be considering things. And I mean, that's a good answer because 3 games in, not a lot of the groups have really worked out. And I think even defensively, there could be use in shuffling some of the pairings around. Namely, though, is the centers between the top 2 lines switching as Hughes takes shifts now with Mercer and Meyer, excuse me. Hischier is now with Bratt and Toffoli. I think it's going to bring a different flavor, but it's about getting scoring on opposing wings with playmakers. So the idea, I guess, is Jack really gets Timo and Dawson going, while Bratt and Toffoli can keep their mojo going and get Nico involved. Although I don't think Toffoli's recorded a point yet. Maybe not a secondary assist, maybe one, but I don't believe he has. So I think it's on the onus of the players who are supposed to be running and leading these lines to take charge. Guys like Timo Meyer, Nico Hischier. I mean, I think it's a welcome change to move them around, but the 2 of them together should be responsible enough to get some points going and get things going for the Devils. But right now, things are going to get changed, and I think that's a good place to start when we look at the lines. Just how much could Hughes impact a Meyer Mercer line, and more than Hischier? What difference is that going to bring other than just some speed and flair?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would have swapped the 2 centers in the middle. I probably would have made wing changers to the top pair. For me, Hughes and Bratt have been excellent together. That's been your only way of offense. So I wouldn't have broke that up. I would have maybe, brought up Holtz to Meyer and Hischier like they were playing in the preseason. I don't know why they broke that up in the first place. But yeah, obviously we now have Hughes, Mercer, and Meyer. So maybe Hughes could wake up Meyer, but so Ryan Novozinski wrote this morning, I believe. I think it was Ryan, or it might have been James, but talking about Meyer's historical like slow starts. Every year he's always a slow starter. So maybe just leave him with Hischier, let him get more chemistry with him. That's my only gripe sometimes with changing lines. Like obviously it's 3 games in, so I don't know if we need to make dramatic changes. I would have just brought Holtz up instead of and then put my Mercer back down on the third line. But what are your thoughts on that?
So I still revert back to my idea that, look, yes, change the lines when things aren't working, but because you have guys like Timo Meyer and Nico Hischier and Dawson Mercer together, ideally you want the three of them to be able to figure it out because Bratt and Hughes is not something you want to split up long term.
Uh,
I'm okay with it momentarily. I'll say that again. But ideally, Timo Meyer was brought in to play ideally next to Nico Hischier on that line. They haven't gotten it going, and Timo, whatever pattern he may have over the last few years, not getting going right away, that's fine as long as eventually these things work out. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if Hughes finds his best line mates are Timo Meyer and Dawson Mercer instead of Tyler Toffoli and Jesper Bratt. But there's a reason that they come in with these ideas, and there's a reason that these were the lines that played all throughout preseason and all throughout the summer. It's because there were plans in place for these guys and their attributes to line up and match up. It's a little frustrating when some of your best, most expensive guys can't really get that going, but a good opportunity to find what is and isn't working is change things up. Because look, let's say Timo Meyer goes on a tear the next week. It doesn't mean he's going to be playing next to Jack Hughes long term. It just means he's gotten enough confidence to go back out there and go on a tear. He could get 3 assists playing on Jack Hughes's line, and then a week later could have that same confidence playing with Nico Hischier. So I like the changes. I hope they're not long term because I think the players just their styles they don't mesh together as well as they were originally. But it takes a little bit to break through that first rut, and I think once things get going, we're going to see a little bit more of what we wanted to see at the beginning of the year. But for now, I'm okay with changing things around as long as it gets these guys going. But time will tell. And the Islanders are not an easy team to just, break a spell of bad hockey against because the Islanders play a very rigid, rough style of play. They're not going to give you space if you don't take it. So it's up to guys like Timo Meyer, some of the more aggressive guys, Meyer, Mercer. I know he's not in the team right now, but guys like Eric Halla to go and really stretch these teams and make them uncomfortable deep in their own zone. And that's why I think it's good to have a guy like Hughes on a line with Dawson, because then once Dawson Mercer does some of that dirty work, Hughes and Meyer can maybe open things up with the puck. Ideally, Nico Hischier is capable of that as well, but it hasn't worked that way so far. So I think the changes, welcome, hopefully not permanent. That's where I'd leave that at.
Yeah, before we move on to the defense, again, I kind of harped on it preseason. All preseason, we saw Meyer, Hischier, and Holtz together, and Meyer and Holtz were excellent together. They were playmaking off each other and everything of the sorts. They looked good. That line looked good. And then as we started the season, they put Mercer on that line, and it kind of seems like it disrupted everything. So hopefully, they all find their right mojo going forward. But I'd like to see that line go in the future. Maybe get that in the future. But let's talk about the defense now.
Yeah, I think it's a good transition to talk about the defense because, well, while the forwards look mostly unchanged with a couple, I would say one or two improvements, the defense has one or two big misses from last year that fans have now started to say, well, we've lost stability now in our blue liners by losing Ryan Graves and Damon Severson. And I think that's an argument that you can make. It's certainly true that you had veteran, stable defensemen in Damon Severson and Ryan Graves. You gave the keys to Luke Hughes to come in, but you also keep Brendan Smith around as sort of the holdover seventh defenseman. But he's been exclusively playing with Luke Hughes, sort of on that off wing, on the third pairing, and he has not looked great individually. But no one's expecting him to be the next Rasmus Dahlin over here or anything like that. They're just expecting him to be the cover defenseman deep on your blue line, bottom pairing D-man, and he is underwhelmed in that regard. Brendan Smith is a great character guy, though. One of the older players in this locker room. He's not going anywhere, and he shouldn't go anywhere. He's an important part of this team. I've spoken to the man himself. I've been around him in interactions with players in that locker room. He does have a big, big purpose in this team. And I'm not taking anything away from him, but that second goal against Florida, where he
Oh
just
man.
batted at the puck, it was a Hail Mary from Kachuk that just flew by him. Things like that, like I can't sit here and honestly say that is he a better hockey player than Colin Miller? Is he a better defenseman than Seaman Nemec? Probably not. I still think he deserves to be with this hockey team, probably as the seventh defenseman, coming in as a spot starter here and there for the Devils. But for him to open up 3 games and not really look great in any of them, I thought actually, you know what? I thought he looked good against the Red Wings. I'll give him some credit there. I thought he was one of the better defensemen against the Red Wings, but against Arizona and Florida, not so much. And another point of mention, in addition to Timo Meier being benched for the entirety of the third period for taking two really bad penalties, as well as Curtis Lazar because they wanted to get more attacking options. John Marino saw one shift the third period, and I thought even this season, going back to last season, has been the most consistent shutdown right-hand defenseman this Devils team has. And if not for Jonas Siegenthaler, he would be far and away the best shutdown defenseman this team has. Lindy just said it was purely hockey decisions based on the guys who didn't play in the third, and I believe him. I'm still a little lost as to why Marino didn't get shifts, but I guess when you throwing out Hughes and Hamilton for every power play, there's not going to be that much time for the Harvard guy. I really do love his game though, and it surprised me not to see him out there.
Yeah, some of these decisions on the back end, bit suspect. Personally, for me, like obviously we can talk about the Brendan Smith batting at the puck. Just watching him in person all game, he struggled. Like for big portions of the game, we thought Luke Hughes would be playing on the right. It was Brendan Smith playing on the right for whatever reason. He was playing on his off wing, and
He did that a lot last year, but granted that was due to injury. It
yeah,
was often when a guy like Marino was out of the lineup. And Smith,
exactly.
to his credit, is good at playing on the opposite side, but why force anybody into that decision when you don't have to?
But the thing is, he was struggling
And he
keeping
struggled.
he was struggling keeping pucks in at the point. I don't know, man. You might have to, like, obviously, yeah. You've talked to him. He's a nice guy. We know he's a good guy. Like that's his thing. He's a great guy. But you know what? Sometimes you gotta look yourself in the mirror as a coach and be like, you know what? He's not good enough. We can't run him. He's a liability right now. We're saying Colin Miller as a right-handed defenseman is worse than Brendan Smith on the right side. Like, and again, I think Luke Hughes should be playing with John Marino. We saw them last year in the playoffs in a bigger pressure situation, and they were eating minutes. They were eating 25 minutes a game in the playoffs against the Carolina Hurricanes. Why are we running Ball with Marino? No offense to Ball, I think he's good. I think he's been really good this year. But
Paul's been great.
I think Ball should be one on the third pair with Colin Miller. I think they would bounce off great with each other. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I think we should, put Hughes back with Marino and put Ball with Colin Miller.
Yeah, I that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I think people hear the idea, oh, you drop Kevin Ball down to the third pairing, it's kind of a demotion. Not really. That's not really the way defense works in hockey. I think you can make that case in the forward lines. You drop from the second line to the fourth line, you're going to get significantly less ice time, and you're not going to have the same responsibilities. The fact of the matter is, there's only three pairings of defense, and it's two players each. Each player on the defense is massively crucial, and the chemistry and the composition of each player and what their traits are and attributes are is very important. To lose John Marino for an entire period because of, I guess, the way that the defensemen were paired with one another kind of seems like a gross misuse of John Marino's talent.
Yeah, that was
And
weird.
you really want him out there. So I think if it means Kevin Ball maybe takes three or four fewer shifts in a game, but is playing as the shutdown guy next to a Luke Hughes or next to a Colin Miller, then things are going to be more balanced out, more stable overall. And that's sort of the thing that fans are calling for, with the exception, or sorry, with the dismissal of Ryan Graves and Damon Severson, is can we get more stability in the defense? I thought, especially against Florida, the first and third goals were just terrible defensive shape. The first one, they walked right through the middle. Reinhart just tapped it through, or maybe it was the first one was Verhage. I don't remember, but the third goal I remember because it was Nico Mikkola. Not happy about
At the
that.
back post.
Just waiting at the back post. By the
Tap
way,
in.
it's not like he did the Dougie Hamilton thing where he raced in at the end because he's an offensive defenseman and found a lane. He was in that lane and had been waiting there the whole time. No one picked him up. Just way too much space right in front of your own goal, right through the middle in the slot. For now, 3 games, and some of these goals are unacceptable. Um, I'm not ready to point fingers at the goaltending, but I think there's been things to criticize about the goalies thus far. Just real quickly, I thought Vanacek probably could have done a bit better on that second goal, the one that skipped by Brendan Smith. Just flicked over his
Over
left
the shoulder.
shoulder.
Yep.
That's he gets beaten over the shoulder a few times too many. I think back into the playoffs, that Ryan Lindgren goal in game 1 of round 1 that just beat him over the shoulder, that had no business going in the back of the net. I would say the same thing about that goal there. As for Akira Schmid, he looked great against the Coyotes, but really, really got faked out of his pads in the shootout. But the goalies have been what we've expected them to be. Make good saves when you need them. And the forwards, I mean, just haven't really gotten going for more than just one period per game. So I think it'd be unfair to point fingers at the goaltenders and say, be better, when it's really the guys in front of them.
Yeah, you talked about it good. So we'll kind of move on from there. I just wanted to point out some injuries at both the NHL and AHL level. Apparently today, Eric Hall is dealing with an upper body injury. He's day-to-day, so that's why he's missing from lines. Chris Tierney comes in on the 4th line, and McLeod goes up to the 3rd-line center. And apparently Thomas Nosek is in a walking boot. He's spotted in a walking boot. They also say he's day-to-day, and it's just a pain threshold thing, but that's not good that he's in a boot. And then over last weekend, both Simon Nemec and Hataka, what's his first name?
Oh my God, I'm never gonna be able to pronounce. I don't even think I've been calling him Haitaka, and I don't know if that's even the correct pronunciation. Santer, is it?
Oh, Santeri. Okay,
Santeri. Is that
okay.
correct?
I think
Santeri?
so. All right, so both of them are dealing with upper body injuries. Nemec was kind of awkwardly hit into the sideboards, so hopefully he's good there. They've only said it's day-to-day, but looks like they both might not play this weekend. But if they only miss this weekend, that's fine. Get them back healthy.
Yeah, like the injuries truck could hit the Devils pretty hard. So far that's just, I would call that a fender bender.
Yeah.
If anything. Got to keep your fingers crossed that you guys, you know who I'm talking about specifically. It's not just one name, it's several names now who really need to stay healthy for long term for this Devils team to find success, especially because they haven't really played their game thus far. We've got a few minutes left before we got to wrap up, and hopefully we have some good news on the prospects as opposed to the injuries, because Cam Squires has been scoring loads of goals, picking up points left and right, as they say in Australia. Can you just wrap up what that guy's been going through, Dan?
I mean, I don't know how good Cape Breton Eagles are this year in the Q, but I mean, Cam Squires is an 18-year-old who's playing first line minutes for them, and he's been excellent so far. 5 goals, 5 assists in 8 games, including this breakaway game-winning goal.
Vous avez entendu la confirmation du but. Fiala dépasse aux 2 Nathan, Barry et Brisson. Attention! Oh, attention, l'échappée, il tire le but! Maxime Desruisseaux est tout sourire, mais c'est un sourire jaune.
Et j'ai l'impression qu'il y avait hors-jeu là-dessus. Squires. Est-ce qu'on va aller à la reprise?
Semble pas du tout regarder le moniteur. Là. Les 3 coachs ne regardent pas en haut. Et on conteste pas. Moi, j'avais l'impression que le gars était rentré.
But yeah, Cam Squires has been amazing. He's our prospect spotlight this week. So, 4th round pick this past offseason, another potential gem in the prospect pool. So shout out to you, Cam Squires.
Yeah, and I mean, you just saw that goal there. His clips are going around Devils Twitter pretty aggressively lately, so you always love to see that, especially when the team's not looking so hot. But I don't want to be super negative right now, because the Devils still have a lot of season left and still have looked really good in the moments where they've looked good. And namely, how they've looked good, it was, I would say, in the press, because ESPN came out with their ranking of the top 100 NHL players, and leading the list with the most, tied with the Tampa Bay Lightning, is the New Jersey Devils with 6. Those 6 are number 81, Jesper Bratt, which you'll remember he was chosen far after 81 in the 2015 or 16 NHL draft. Whatever draft it was, he was taken in the 6th round, and we love reminding people of that. At 65 is Tyler Toffoli, who still yet to record his first point with the Devils, the former Calgary Flame. In number 58 is Timo Meier, who's still looking to record his first point of the season. as number 28 for the New Jersey Devils. Number 49 is Dougie Hamilton, who has already hit the ground running with a couple of goals, a couple of similar looking goals too. I think it was the Brat Pack who called Dougie Hamilton the most underrated star player in the NHL, and I absolutely love that because he is a star.
His one tees are just crazy, bro.
It's not even just that. People forget he was the first domino that fell in the Devils becoming good again. If that contract doesn't happen, I don't know if a lot of these other contracts happen. At 31 is the captain Nico Hischier. He raised the bar last year, scoring 30 goals. No wonder he's on this list. He's a Selke guy now. And at number 4, cracking the top 5 is Jack Hughes, behind only Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar, and Connor McDavid. They have him ahead of Matthews, Draisaitl, Kucherov, Rantanen, Eichel, Pastrnak, Matthew Tkachuk. They have him all up against and ahead of. I don't know about all that, but I definitely have him in my top 10. And I think that people know what the Devils are. They're a great team with great players. They just have to start looking like that again. And look, this list doesn't mean anything, but it's kind of cool when guys that are as good as they are get the recognition they deserve.
Yeah, suspect list overall, to be honest, if you look at some of the names in the top 100. But hey, man, I don't care. Jack Hughes definitely top 5 player, even though he's definitely not right now. Love those players, but hey, man, ESPN said it.
Hey, look, and he's on pace for like 200 points right now with the way he's done through the first 3 games. So that's just about all the time we have for this week of Puck on the Parkway. We'll be back soon with some more Devils hockey. The season is in full swing. We're so excited. Thank you guys for joining in, and let's go Devils.
Yeah, so let's go. Let's get some wins.